to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel.
If you're hitting like a rough patch, you're probably overdrawn. You probably need more deposits. You probably need to do some of the very things that I've been talking about.
Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. Great to have you joining us again today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing these episodes in this podcast. Appreciate that. Really enjoy hearing from you folks, and thankful for your support, your listening, your interest, and ultimately I hope you're really being helped by these episodes. Today we're going to talk about your love life, because tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and what a perfect opportunity to talk about it. And I've done episodes on relationships and marriage and things like that before, so this isn't new, but as I always try to do, come up with a new way to do it today. 10 ways to improve your love life. There you go. Practical, super practical. This is going to sound very unromantic in the sense that it's so practical, but it's very romantic, because when you do these things, practical as they may be, you will see a romance meter go way, 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 way up. So really important to do that. And again, 10 different ways you can do it. So hopefully one or two of these is going to grab you in some way. And you're going to say, yeah, that's something that I need to start doing or haven't been doing. And that there's an improvement, or there's something that's going to help. Been a little bit of an issue. And this is going to be the way that's going to help me to make my relationship better, especially talking to married folks. But of course, anyone that's in a romantic relationship can benefit. But you'll see my kind of my focus, my understanding is going to be on those that made that commitment to be in a marriage. And this, of course, is where you can have a challenge, because when you're dating someone and things are new and things are fresh, it can be easier to involve yourself in all kinds of activities and romance and all those sorts of things. And then you get married, and then all the responsibilities of life come in. And so I really do want to help folks that find themselves in that particular context. Before we jump in here in just a moment, I just want to say that last year I wrote an article for Fox News for Valentine's on when's the last time you did something for the first time. I would really encourage you to read that. That would be a great supplement to what you hear today. So you can just type in my name in Valentine's Day, or type in my name and all these articles will come up, and just go back 1 year and you'll find it there. There's different ways to do it, but one way or the other, you ought to be able to find it. But I think you will be helped by that. I tell the story of something that I did that 2 years ago on Valentine's for the first time, and I've been with my wife a long time, so that was not as easy thing to do when you've had a lot of Valentine's Days together, and that was a memorable one. That was a very, very, very memorable one. So I think that will help you, and I hope that you will take advantage of it. Another is that the book that I wrote, You Got Style, which is like a labor of love, man. That was a lot of research. And that book is just really helpful if you want to work on relationships, because it's the different styles that we have. And almost always two people don't have the same style. So it can be just really helpful to read that book together, to go through the inventories, and to just discover, this is my time style. This is your decision style. These things this is my thinking style. These really can make a huge, huge difference in decision making and parenting styles. If you have children, really, really helpful. You Got Style. That would be a good book to get. And there's inventories at the end of each chapter, and you can kind of diagnose yourselves, and it'll help you get along better, because you'll understand some of where the rubs come from. Is just you're just looking at things from a different perspective. All right, so let's just jump in here today. 10 ways to improve your love life. And I'm going to start with one that's going to seem really like weird almost, but counselors say this is a big one. So here it is. Be nice to each other. Well, yeah, sure. the majority of counselors say that this is one of the first homework assignments that they end up giving to couples that come in for counseling. They're not being nice to each other. There was a study that was done, and it said that if there is rolling of the eyes when one person talks, if the other person is rolling their eyes, that is a real significant sign of deep trouble that could lead to divorce, because that indicates disgust, and you just cannot have disgust in a relationship and expect it to last, let alone be romantic. So it seems kind of basic, but at the same time, just think about it like this. Like, let's just say we brought, cameras that are everywhere. What if you brought them in your house and we filmed some of your interactions? I think most of us, and I certainly put myself in this category too, you'd be horrified at some of the things that you say and the ways that you act toward the person that's supposed to be the most important person in your life, most significant relationship that you have. It's just kind of almost unreal how we can sometimes be nicer to just about anybody else out there than we are people at work, nicer to them, people at the store, nicer to them. And we end up leaving our nastiest self for the person that is the one we love the most. It's kind of messed up. And part of that is, taking each other for granted, feeling like in your home, you can let down your guard. You don't have to be. I get it. I understand it. Believe me, I've been in leadership for years. I understand what it's like to be in public, in front, and then everyone's looking at you, and then your home becomes a place that you can be more yourself. But the problem with that is that can lead you then to not treat each other the nicest way. So, start doing nice things and saying nice things, and watch your attitude and the tone of your voice and your facial expressions, because those are giveaways. They're either going to say nice or they're going to say nasty, and you need it to be nice. All right, here's one that is, I've shared this with many people through the years. It, again, sounds unromantic, but stick with me. Have a weekly, what I called for years, a marriage staff meeting. I'm sure there are much better terms that'll sound a whole lot better. The reason I chose that is because I had a weekly staff meeting for years in my life, and so that happened every Tuesday, and then every Friday was my marriage staff meeting, and that's when I would have lunch with my wife on a Friday, and we would just talk about stuff. Now, some of it was just real practical, like schedule stuff, like, hey, the kids are doing this, they're going here. Hey, I've got this appointment. I've got this out of town trip. I've got this meeting. I'm going to be doing this. This is happening. Just like schedule, just to try to make sure we know what is happening with each other. But then it also is an ideal opportunity to talk about anything. In other words, instead of letting things slide, you got this weekly huddle, you got this weekly opportunity to go, okay, how are things going? And so it's a chance to say, this is concerning me. I wanted to talk about this. What about planning for this coming up? Like, that's how you make sure that you have plans, and you have vacations and trips and special things, because you talk about them. It's an opportunity to say, hey, this, you said this, didn't really like it very much, hurt my feelings, and you got an opportunity to talk it out or apologize or whatever. It just gives you a weekly chance to do all these things. Talk, even stuff like intimacy, your sex life, you have an opportunity there to talk about all that stuff in a weekly meeting. So might not sound romantic to have a weekly meeting, but it can really, really, really help your relationship in a lot of different ways. All right, here's the third one. Do little things that make that make your spouse smile, that make them happy. Be on the treasure hunt for the little stuff. I've got something sitting on the desk that I'm recording this podcast now that says, when you do the little things well, the big things are better. It's a fact. It's true. That's the way it works. The little things, you do the little things well, you'll do the big ones better. So it works, but you got to do the little stuff. And a lot, going back to be nice to each other, here's the other side of the little just like you do little things that aren't nice, you can do little things that are nice. So, just like maybe you just send some like funny, Instagram video or something, YouTube, something like that, you send it and it's just like funny just for a laugh, or some kind of thing with animals, that's just really nutty, or just a little text, and it could be just sweet, it could be flirty, it could be any of those things, but the little things really do matter. And sometimes it's just going maybe beyond even something little, like when the last time we traveled together, that trip I talked about, the Panama Canal and all that, we got on this tour bus at one point in the trip, and it was freezing cold. I mean, I don't really care much about the cold, but man, my wife does. And that bus was just like the air conditioning was on 62 or something, and she was just so cold. And I could just see that this was not going to be good, because she was just going to be very uncomfortable. And if we had like a 45-minute drive or something. So I just really just jumped up and kind of ran out of the bus, and I said, hey, give me a second. Don't leave. I'll be right back. Because this particular bus was parked right in front of a little shopping area. And so I just zipped around and found like a store that sold like, t-shirts and sweatshirts. And I just grabbed the sweatshirt for my wife and I bought it for her. Got back on the bus and she put it on, and now she's warm and everybody's happy. It's the little things, the little things can really make a difference. All right, here's another one. Let the resentments go. Just let go of the little things that bug you. And if you need to talk about it, keep it more on the light side. Like one time my wife said to me, you chew really loud. It's like completely like, what? Chew loud? Yeah, it like bugs me. You chew loud. It's like, okay, well, good to know. See if I can make the chewing sound not so loud, but couples can get into things like, the TV's too loud, it's not loud enough, you're always the one with the remote, and or you said this to me, or you didn't say this to me, or again back to some of these tone and looks and things like that. And somewhere along the line, being nice to each other, start with that, because that's really important. But in this case, sometimes you just have to let stuff go. It just isn't worth it. It's not worth it to kind of keep a hold of it and allow it to cause more problems, because the resentments can start to become bitterness. And man, when they become bitterness, we got problems. That there's a reason why the Bible says the root of bitterness, because it is a root, and what that root does is it just goes everywhere, and it just starts to get all around your heart, and it starts choking out all the love and happiness inside of you. And you do not want that. All right, here's another one. Plan getaways. My youngest son is kind of a little smart aleck, and he used to say, oh, another romantic rendezvous. We just love to say romantic rendezvous, but we can call them, trips away, but you can call them romantic rendezvous if you want. But you shouldn't go too long. I don't think you should go more than at least like a quarter if you want to break up the year like that, seasonally, quarterly, without having some type of overnight time where the kids are left behind, your responsibilities are left behind, and you find a way to reconnect where it's just the two of you The drive can be an opportunity to talk, like a marriage staff meeting, in depth about maybe other things. You can go to somewhere that's beautiful or romantic or really good for just like outdoor activities, whatever the case may be. But you go somewhere, and that is just vitally, vitally, vitally important. I have counseled couples over and over again, and I'll say this especially to men, because I think men need to take the lead here. I think a lot of women are just waiting for a romantic rendezvous to be planned and simply to be said, hey, we're going, this weekend, here we go, or Friday night, we're going, we'll come back Saturday night. And you don't do it, and your wife is kind of waiting for that leadership of, are you going to show me that I'm important enough to take away some time from what other things you might be doing? So the weekend trip, the romantic rendezvous, the getaway, whatever you want to call it, man, it's really, really, really valuable thing to do. Sometimes you'll hear people say, like, we don't have a babysitter, we can't afford it. And what I would say to you is find a babysitter. Maybe you swap with another couple. You take care of their kids so they can do it, and then they take care of your kids so you can do it. I would also say, it doesn't have to be some 5-star resort. You could go to one of these state park cabins that are very inexpensive and achieve much of what you want to achieve, and go on a hike and have some time together. And so it can be done. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I just think it's so important to find a way to do that. All right. Look for good things that your spouse does. It's easy to find fault. And, sometimes we use that for the next time we have an issue, to tell our spouse, this is what you're doing wrong, and here's an example of it. It's harder to focus on telling your spouse what they're doing right. But it's an important one, and this can prevent real or even imaginary issues from coming up. And I just think that it's harder to do this because this falls into this very powerful principle of how much easier it is for us to point out negatives than positives, and how much our brains just naturally go in that direction. So we really have to intentionally, and this is the word intentionality, intentionally look for the good things that we can point out to our spouse and say, this is really good. And I was just in a conversation recently, and some guys, and just talking about spending and their wives spending, and I just thought, my wife, she grew up in this big family, there were like 9 of them, so she didn't really grow up in a place where she was used to getting stuff and having money spent, and so I'm the beneficiary of that because she just is not that kind of a person. I talked to this guy one time, and his wife's like, I want to go to the Maldives, and you've never taken me. And Maldives, however you say it, it's a gorgeous place. It certainly looks phenomenal, but it was almost like, you have to do this. That wouldn't be my wife's perspectives, and so there's just something to say, hey, thanks for being that way, and not, pressuring me to do things or spend money or feel like, whatever the case may be. And whatever it is that you see your wife being such a good mother, or you see your wife really acting like a godly woman and just really living out like what it means to follow Jesus. It's worth noting that and focusing on it for sure. That is a big one, a really, really big one. Here's another, in terms of the whole romance thing, just the idea of making sure that the physical touch is a part of the relationship. Now that can be something like holding hands. It could be like snuggling on the couch while you're, watching a TV show. It certainly can be about your sexual relationship, but it's just the physical connection is so important to deepening the emotional bond. And you can just really never get past that. That's we're not roommates, we're not partners. I do not like the word partner, never have, never will. You're not my partner. Partner is like a business partner. You are my spouse, you are my wife, and we're not in some business arrangement. And of course that's what marriage can become. You're just kind of like that's why the word partner is so bad in my opinion, because you're actually like saying it now. Like, well, we're just like partners and we're running this household and making sure everything gets done and taken care of. And the thing that makes you a couple is that you're lovers, and the physical connection and the physical touch is absolutely crucial to it. And so it's God's design for marriage. Some call it the act of marriage, which I think is a really good way to think about it, like the act of marriage. And of course, it can produce children, but it brings pleasure, it brings closeness, it brings connection. So it's gotta be there. And again, it's more than just the sexual part. It is the touching, it is the holding hands, it is the snuggling, cuddling, whatever you want to call it. It's all those things. And if those things are not happening, then that's not good. And if you're going to improve your love life, this is a major area in which you would be improving, would be right in this area. So make sure you're doing that. All right, here's another one. Don't blame, shame, or complain. Now, man, that is easier said than done. That's why I couldn't, in all honesty, with integrity, put the word never in front of it. But certainly try, because when you point the finger, you voice your disappointment, that it's not gonna make your spouse feel good. What am I about to say in terms of how my partner is going to feel about it? Is it going to make things better? And you may say, well, how can we make things better if I don't point stuff out? And of course that's true, but I think then it's really finding the right moment, the right time. Again, weekly staff meeting is your chance now in no anger, no upset, to just talk calmly and clearly and be able to just have like a constructive kind of feedback. If you're going to do that, though, do it in a nice way. Easier said than done, I know. I understand. But consistent complaining, blaming for mess ups and screw ups and shortcomings, whatever you want to call it, shaming, it's just, these things, they don't end up resulting in something positive. So you have to try to find a way to say, bring it up, but do it in a way that has this idea of, okay, I'm pointing this out so we can make things better. Things can be better. I'm not pointing it out so that you feel bad about yourself, not attacking you. It's really delicate to be able to work through this, because you just can't be like, well, I'm never going to say anything. Well, I mean, that's not realistic either. But again, we're going back to what I started with and being nice to each other, the tone, the facial expressions, there's so much that goes into this. You could just say the exact same words, but you can say them in two completely different ways, and you need to say it in the more positive way instead of the more negative way. And, you'll get a much better response. And again, I love the idea of having kind of this weekly neutral It's not like a special thing. We got to get down and talk about this. We're meeting anyway. We're talking about other things. It's not the whole focus of what we're talking about. You see how good that can work. But when that happens, do it in the right way for sure. All right, here's another romantic one in this era, a digital era in which we live, which is just to, like leave love notes, like those sticky notes. They still sell them. They're still out there, just something, something that you could just write a little note and slip it in your spouse's purse or pocket or car or bathroom mirror, whatever it might be. Love you. You're beautiful. You're handsome. Really enjoyed last night. Whatever it might be. There's all kinds of things that you could say that would brighten someone's day, that would make them feel better about their life. And it's a reminder, that you have strong affection, and that's very powerful, very powerful. And it can lift people. It can lift them up and make them feel better. It might just be a quick little call in the middle of a busy day. I was thinking about you, or, just little things like that. They're valuable. They're important. I do think the paper part is there's something to it. I know texting is easy and great, and calls are great too, but there is something about having something that you could write down and you could literally keep it. It could be something that, your spouse could just keep in their purse, for instance, her purse, and then, maybe 2 weeks later she's looking for something else, and then she finds that. Again, it almost has like a double benefit. It's like, wow, this thing's got legs. It's working at the time and then later. So things like this, they're simple, they're small in one way, and yet they're very big in what they can produce. All right, one more, and I saved this one for last, and that is making deposits. Gary Smalley is the one that introduced this to me years ago. This idea of thinking about your marriage relationship as a bank account, in the sense that just not financially now, just the concept of like deposits and withdrawals. And nobody wants to be overdrawn, right? No one wants to have more withdrawals than deposits, because that is not a good place for you to be financially. And this idea that we have the same thing in relationships, we have these emotional withdrawals and deposits, and we need more deposits than we have withdrawals. So just kind of having that mental paradigm where you're just saying, what does this marriage look like in terms of its balance sheet, it's what's in the account, I'm trying to use the financial language while stressing that this has nothing to do with finances, but just to get the picture of what it would look like, to just say, it's like I would go on my online banking and see where things stand. I need to be able to say, where are things standing? And I would just say to you very simply, if you're hitting like a rough patch, you're probably overdrawn. You probably need more deposits. You probably need to do some of the very things that I've been talking about today to get that deposit balance up. There are all kinds of things you can do to strengthen your bond. And you can certainly start with the ones I've talked about now. And you don't have to do all of them at once. But you need to be aware that, if this is where we're at right now, this might be the reason why is the marriage bank account is not a healthy balance. It's overdrawn. And so you got to intentionally think, what can I do to make deposits that are going to get this balance back up? Because if you do, then you won't be feeling the rub. You won't be feeling the pressure, the stress. We're not overdrawn, and you'll be feeling much better about your relationship. So use that as kind of a model to think about, and then put some of these things into practice, and definitely make sure that tomorrow on Valentine's Day is a special time for the two of you. Happy Valentine's Day. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.